I am Supreme, and today is May the 14th, 2025. I will be conducting an Astro Oracle investigation on a recent killing in Prince George's County. A grandmother by the name of Leslie Yvette Davis, who is 54 years old, was shot dead in her home in Landover, Maryland, in her bedroom. Her body was found laying between the bed and the window. Somebody shot through the window. Bullet holes were found through the window, and that's how they knew she got killed. This was Saturday, May 10th, 2025. I'm going to go over this timeline and tap into as much of the energy of this crime and event as possible. We don't have a lot of information. This crime just happened like 3 days ago. So, on May 10th, 2025, about 2:15 in the afternoon, the authorities received a call because Leslie Yvette, who was found dead, her daughter was coming to pick up their children from their mother's house. So Leslie Yvette was babysitting her 4 grandchildren at the time for the weekend, like a Mother's Day sleepover. That's how they called it. So all the kids were in the house during the shooting when it all took place. Okay, now I'm going to go over the ages of the kids. Okay, there were 2 6-year-olds. They were twins. There was 1 2-year-old, and there was a 10-month-old. When the authorities got there, the 2 6-year-olds was running rampant around the house saying, when the parents got there to pick them up, the 2 6-year-olds was running around the house saying, Grandma, something happened to Grandma. Where's Grandma at? On one media, the kids didn't know where the grandmother was. And then another media I was watching for information said that when the parents got there, the parents located the body. Now, the body was in the grandmother's room along with the 2-year-old and a 10-year-old and the 10-month-old. The 2-year-old and the 10-month-old was fine. They wasn't hit. They was fine. Okay, but the grandmother was hit. And her body was on the floor in between the bed and the window. And the 2 6-year-olds was somewhere in the house. Okay, and they're saying that these kids was in that house probably about 12 hours while the grandmother was dead. So I'm not sure what's going on, but this is why I do what I do. So yeah, Leslie Yvette Davis, 54 years old, was found shot dead in her home bed babysitting her 4 grandchildren in Landover, Maryland, Prince George's County. Okay, now Leslie was a reverend at a church. Her family says she was heavy in the church. So I'm definitely going to be looking inside of... I'm going to be focusing, whatever card gets pulled and whatever chart we're going to be working from, I'm going to be looking in the 9th house, which is the house of the church and religion, belief systems. Since that energy was heavy in her, I'm going to be looking at Sagittarius because Sagittarius rules the 9th house. But we're going to find out what's in the 9th house, whatever chart gets pulled. I'm going to also be looking in the house of death, which is the 8th house. Okay. Church, 8th house. And I'm also going to look where Scorpio is because Scorpio rules the 8th house. But we're going to look at where Scorpio is and what sign is in the 8th house and connect the dots to see what energies was taking place that day that would have manifested this shooting. I pulled a birth chart for Leslie. Now, Leslie was a new moon baby. A new moon baby is when the sun and the moon is in the same sign. August 3rd is Leo season. So she was a Leo. But when you are a Leo, that just means your sun is there. You have a different moon sign, but sometimes you have the same moon sign as your sun sign, and that's what makes you a new moon baby. And her moon was in Leo as well. So she was a double Leo. She was a double lioness. And, that speaks volumes of a person's character. Leos are very confident, very bold, very regal, and the fact that she was a reverend, and her Mercury, which is the planet of communication, is in Virgo. I bet when she spoke about God, she spoke in detail, like she broke things down. She knew exactly what she was talking about, and she loved doing what she did. I feel like she loved to talk about her higher power. Okay, and she loved to talk about it in detail, and she loved to help people understand how God works. Okay, because her Mercury was in Virgo and her Venus was in Virgo. Now her Mars, which is the planet of war, was also in Leo, so she was a warrior. Okay, she was like that lioness that was willing to fight for what she believed in, and she was a fighter, period. Okay, I don't know any Leo woman that's not a fighter. Not just for religion, but for anything. Like, they are fighters. They are bullies, pretty much. If you see a woman in the crowd that comes across as a little dominant, but yet she's so beautiful, it's like, wow, how can something that beautiful be that dominant? 9 times out of 10, you just cross paths with a Leo woman. Okay, she is, out of all the women in the zodiac, Leo women are the most dominant. And those are the dominant women that know how to still be a lady. So her Mercury was in Virgo, her Venus was in Virgo, her Mars was in Leo, her Jupiter was in Libra, her Saturn was in Taurus, her Uranus was in Libra, Neptune was in Scorpio, and Pluto was in Virgo. Okay? Now I pulled a death chart too to see where the planets were the day she died. Okay, and the sun was in Taurus, and the moon was on the cusp of Leo and Scorpio. Scorpio is the energy of death, Libra is the energy of relationships. So I'm going to look at both her relationship status during that time of death. I'm going to look to see if I can locate a partner, and I'm going to also look in the house of death, because the moon went from the partner into the house of death that day. Okay, so definitely going to look at that aspect of the chart, and that is the 7th house. We're going to look at that. So the 9th house, the 8th house, and the 7th house. See what type of Libra activity was going on in her chart, because Libra is the partner. So these are the areas that I'm going to be looking at. Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Libra. The 9th house, which belongs to Sagittarius. The 8th house, which belongs to Scorpio. That's the house of death. And the 7th house, which belongs to Libra. That's the house of relationships. And the 9th house, that is the house of religion. She was a reverend, so I'm going to study that energy and see where it takes me. So on the day she died, Mercury was in Taurus. Venus was in Aries. Mars was in Leo. Now, her Mars was in Leo, but Mars was also in Leo the day that she died. So I'm also going to be looking at where Leo is. Definitely going to be looking at where Leo is, because she's a double Leo. She's a new moon in Leo, and her Mars is there. Mars is the energy of war, death. Okay, so definitely going to be looking at what Mars is doing in Leo. So Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus, Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius. And all of that was on the day that she died. Okay? So, let's... Okay. All right, y'all ready to pull a chart? We're going to get to it. All right, Miss Davis. Talk to us. Gemini in the 7th house. This is a neighbor. That's the neighbor card. I'm not saying that the neighbor did it. But that is the neighbor card. Okay? Now, and the seventh house, which is where I told you I was going to look at the partner. Did I tell you I was going to look at that? Tell you we're going to be looking in the seventh house to find out what Libra was doing. That's Libra's house. But Gemini's there. And Gemini represents the neighbor. Gemini also represents the sibling as well. When it comes to people, Gemini represents people in your local environment, which is your neighbors, but it also represents your siblings as well. Okay? So I'm not sure if she had any siblings. But let's pull the chart of when Gemini is in the seventh house. And then we're going to pull the rest of the cards. So when Gemini is in the seventh house, Sagittarius, which is the first energy I told you I was going to look for, is rising. So, the ninth house chart. Didn't I tell you that is the first chart? That is the first area I'm going to be looking at where whatever chart gets pulled. Didn't I tell you the first thing I wrote is the ninth house and Sagittarius. This is a ninth house chart. Energy doesn't lie. And Gemini in the seventh is the reason why this chart is the chart that all the answers to this crime is going to be in. The ninth house is the house of religion. This is a crime that involves somebody in the energy of religion. Okay? This could have been a religious crime, a spiritual warfare. This could have been some doors that opened up, like I was saying. There's an oracle tutorial, an Astro oracle tutorial in the link in the description below in this video, where you will be able to go to that video and click on any sign, any house number, any planet that you see me talk about or pull on any of my cards and talk about in any of my charts. So that way, when you see me pull that card and you think I'm just talking shit, I want you to go to that tutorial and click on Gemini yourself and watch how I break down what Gemini means, and then click on the number 7 so you'll see how I break down what the number 7 means. So you'll see how I'm formulating my story. This is the neighbor. Okay, this is somebody in the local environment. Okay, doesn't mean that's the person that stays next door to her, because your neighbor can stay anywhere because it's in your neighborhood. Anybody in your hood is a neighbor. Whether they stay next door, around the corner, up the street, as long as it's in the same hood, that is your neighbor. So, where's the door that opened up was the neighbor. Okay? Now, where is Libra? Being that the neighbor is in Libra's house, where is Libra? Libra is in the 11th house of groups, organizations. This could have been somebody from the group that she met in a group at church, or organization, a committee. You know, churches, they are full of organizations and committees and, you know, all types of groups of individuals. You know, they raise money, they have the women's group, they have the children's group, they have the Sunday school group, women's night, men's night, you know, all of these different groups that they have, you know, and that's what the 11th house means. So she had a lot of relationships in this house of groups. And how I know that is because this is Uranus's house, 11th house. And Leslie's Uranus is in Libra. So she had a lot of friends. She had a lot of relationships with people in her local environment that also attended the church that she attended. Okay? Now, like I said, we're going to look in the 8th house of death. And in the 8th house, I see Cancer. Cancer is the energy of the mother, the family. Okay? This represents not just your family and your mother. This represents other people's family, because the 8th house represents what you merge with another. This represents, if Taurus was here, this would represent other people's money. If Gemini was here, it'll represent information that's given to you or shared with you about somebody else. Being that Cancer is here, this represents somebody else's family member, because the member is the house of membership is the 11th house where Libra is. Okay, so this was another family member, somebody else's family member. I'm not saying it's her family member. Okay, but you never know, because in the house of her family, I see Pisces. So wherever you see Pisces at, it's unknown. Okay, it's smoke and mirrors. You have to dig deep to find out this unknown hidden activity that's going on in her family. But I'm quite sure there is an enemy lurking in her family, or this family member is an enemy, somebody that's probably close to her, like family. Okay, and her enemy would most likely be the one that's tied to taking her out. How I know that is because when I go over to Pisces house, which is the 12th house, which is where all hidden activity is, things that are going on behind our back, I see Scorpio. Scorpio is the energy of death, power, and control. Okay? And like I told you, I was going to look in the house of death and I was going to find out where Scorpio was. So this death was due to something that was being hidden from her. Okay? If it was intentional, it was an enemy. She had an enemy. Okay? That was hiding from her. I feel like this person has been passing by a lot. They are familiar with her activity in that house. Let's pull, I'm going to put this up. Let's pull a crime. Because, of course, not just the murder was a crime, but there was a crime leading up to that. There's a reason. Nobody just comes out of nowhere and starts shooting at you to kill you. There is a reason. And we're going to search this crime. Mercury is a planet that belongs to Gemini. So when I want to also find out, get more into this neighbor, which is I see is a member of an organization, most likely connected to her church. Okay. If I follow Mercury, it'll give me more information about this member. And Mercury, on the day she died, was in Taurus. It had just got to Taurus. It just left Aries the night before. And then early that morning, it went into Taurus. So it had just left the house of romance. It had just left the house of romance and the house of children. Okay. Now, Aries is in the 5th house. The night before she died, the moon was still in Aries. I mean, Mercury was still in Aries. It was leaving Aries, the last drop of Aries. Okay. And it was in Taurus. Okay. So, Taurus, this can be taught. This is in the house of work. This is in Virgo's house. Okay, the energy of money. Because remember when I talked about Taurus, if it was in the 8th house, which represents what belongs to other people, that's Scorpio's house. How you merge and share with something that belongs to another. So if Taurus was there, that would represent money and material resources that you earn and gain from another. It represents other people's money, other people's material resources. But being that Cancer was there, this would represent another family member. Okay, somebody else's family. Okay. Now, Taurus, though, the energy of money and material resources, is in the house of work and service, which is Virgo's house. And Leslie had a strong Virgo energy because her Mercury and her Venus was there. And see, Virgo is at the top in the 10th house of fame. Okay, it is at the 10th house of the public authority figure. So that lets me know that this money that's in the house of work, which is where she worked at, Okay, this could have been a co-worker. I'm quite now. They said she's a reverend, but she's also a travel agent. This could be something involving money. Okay, in the workforce, like an issue with an employee. Okay, the issue surrounding work and what it is that she does for a living. Okay, because the 10th house lets me know that this may have been a Virgo issue, okay, involving religion. Okay, this could be something that has to do with judgment. Okay, this can you never know, it could have been a hate crime. um but this killing was very personal. It was very personal. Okay, because the moon on the day that she died, because in the house of death, Cancer is there, and the moon rules Cancer, and the moon was in Libra. It was in the cusp between Libra and Scorpio. It was right in the middle, so of both. So it was dealing with the partner, which was this member, and it was also dealing with what was hiding. So there is a member on her committee, wherever that committee is, whether it's at church or whether it was the committee that she traveled with or somebody she worked with. It is a member of a group that she belongs to that is also was one of her hidden enemies that is linked and tied to this shooting, if it was intentional. Now, being that she was a Leo, look at where she was at in the 9th house. This represents a reverend. This represents a teacher of higher knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Her Leo, which is who she was, is in the 9th house. Because this is a 9th house chart. Because Sagittarius is rising. And the fact that she was a new moon in Leo. Her sun and her moon was in Leo. And here she goes right here. She's the reverend in the 9th house. Go look it up for yourself. In the 9th house. Leo energy. Okay, it's almost like she dominated that field. Okay, she was very dominant in what she did for the Lord and her God. Okay, but also she was a warrior. So when you are a warrior, you will attract war. Okay, and Mars was definitely in Leo. So this was definitely a spiritual warfare, spiritually based attack. Okay, probably on her family. All right, let's pull this crime. Financial abuse. What did I tell you? This was about money, and it's in the 7th house. And see, that's the first card that was pulled, a 7th house card. So this member, yeah, this is about financial abuse. This is somebody that she works with. I just got finished saying that Taurus is in the house of work and service, and this is about money and material resources. Okay, financial abuse. Somebody knows something that was going on. Okay, and shit hit the fan. Okay, and look at that. Energy does not lie. Okay, financial abuse in the 7th house. That's where that neighbor is. That member of the committee is right there. Okay, this was financial abuse. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button so that way you can be notified when I drop these investigations. Now I'm going to be pulling from my Who deck. This is going to zoom into who, because we're looking for some people. We want to know who is responsible and where are they? Who is responsible? Who is involved in the death of Leslie Yvette Davis? That is who we are looking for. Who is involved in the death of Leslie Yvette Davis on May 10th, 2025. I was about to say her birthday. Yep, this was about money. Mm-hmm. Yep. Suspect in the third house. That's Gemini's house. That's the neighbor's house. That's the neighbor. Look it up for yourself. The third house. That's the local neighborhood. And that's where the suspect is. And the first card that came out was Gemini in the seventh house, which is the partner. Okay? This was the member, the partner. This is Libra's house. This was the enemy. A person that she was in partnership with. And they live in the local environment. And that's where the suspect card is. Are y'all following me? Go to my tutorial. The suspect. The suspect is one of her neighbors. Okay? The third house also represents siblings. But if it wasn't one of her siblings, it was one of her neighbors. And if you look in the third house, you will see Aquarius. And what did I tell you was in Aquarius's house? Aquarius is the member. Aquarius represents group, individuals, a group of people. Your Aquarius and the planet Uranus rule. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited because when this stuff comes out, it almost makes me want to cry because I just wish I was tapped into this earlier in my life, in my early 20s, so I could have more time to bring answers. This stuff, I catch the Holy Ghost, like the real Holy Ghost, when I be doing these readings, because I can feel the presence of the true and living source, okay, communicating through us, okay? Now, back to this Aquarius. Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius. Remember I told you that, right? That's the 11th house. That's where Libra is. Remember I told you I'm going to look for what the Libra energy is doing in the 7th house. So, the neighbor came out in the 7th house. And in order for me to find out what kind of neighbor this was, I had to go to find out where Libra was. And Libra is in Aquarius's house, which is the 11th house. Okay? So, where's Aquarius at? Aquarius is in the 3rd house. That zigzag sign in the 3rd house, that's Aquarius. When I see that symbol, I see an individual that comes from a group. Okay? That's where the suspect is. And this individual lives in that local environment. It lives in her neighborhood. It's a part of her group. It's a part of her membership. It's a part of her membership. They need to question the congregation. They need to question the people at their church. They need to question the people she works with. And this is all if this was intentional. Okay? But now, like I said, doors open up. Even if things are not intentional, let me explain to you what I mean when I say doors will open up. When you open up a door by certain activities that you do that is not in alignment with who you are, you open up a spiritual door. So when you open up a spiritual door, a dark spiritual door for attack, you open up the door for attack. That doesn't mean that the people involved meant to harm you. It's just that spiritual alignment made a way for their pursuit to hit you because you was going to get beat one way or the other. You were going to get chastised from the Lord or God, source, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying that Leslie got beat from the Lord. That's not what I'm saying. Even when I did the quotes, I'm just saying, you know, like they say, the devil comes to collect. Okay. That's just a saying that you can't beat God. Okay, you can't beat the way spirit works. You can't do things even when no one's looking, thinking that nobody will find out and expect to get away with it. Because this is a spiritual warfare we live in. Okay, this universe is like a metal detector. Whatever you got going on in you, it will beep. That metal detector will beep if you don't empty out what should not be on you or in you when it comes to the universe. You got to empty out all of those disaligned behaviors, disaligned thoughts, disaligned motivations. Because if not, you will show up beeping. Beep, 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 beep. You'll show up like a red alert. The fingerprint of your existence will show up as a red alert with the universe. And if you don't fix that red alert, them flying monkeys are on the way. They are automatically dispatched to the red alert. All right, let's pull some evidence. Evidence in the first house. Firearm evidence and weapons, of course, because that is how she was killed. And it's in the first house. Okay? So the first house is where you see Sagittarius. That's the reason why. And see, I told you I was going to look. What's the first thing I wrote down? I'm going to look at what's going on with where Sagittarius is at. Okay? Now, if you look at the chart, Sagittarius is in the what house? The first house. Okay? So, Sagittarius is the energy of travel. Okay? It is the energy of travel. Now, let me tell you something. That could be a drive-by. Okay? But it can also mean it is a member of the travel agent committee that she's a part of, the group. It could have been somebody from there. Go look it up for yourself in my tutorial. You look up Sagittarius, you're going to see travel. You're going to see the agent. Okay? So this could be the firearm evidence could be with somebody who she works with. This is about money. Who she works with in a travel agency, not just the church. Or they could be linked together. They could be linked together. Where's Jupiter? Because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And Jupiter, on the day she died, May 10th, 2025, is in Gemini. Jupiter is in the very first card that came out. That is in the energy of the neighbor. Yeah. So this is somebody in her local environment. This is one of her, and if it's not somebody that lives in her neighborhood, this is one of her siblings, and not just her blood siblings, because group activity represents your group siblings. It could be one of her church sisters or brothers. It could be one of her flight sisters or brothers. But it's definitely a sister or a brother from another mother, which in the house of death, I'm done. Because in the house of death is Cancer. Remember I told you? Other people's families, and Cancer is the energy of the mother, and the 8th house represents the other. One of her siblings from another mother. Do you know when you graduate college or any type of higher learning institution, you are considered, they call it the alma mater. Do you know what alma mater means? It means literally another mother. Okay, so you graduating from another mother, which was this institution that taught you all of these things, that means that the first mother, the original mother, is your mother. In this situation, this was one of her siblings from another mother. One of them groups. It wasn't, I don't think it was any of her blood. But it was definitely somebody that played sister and brother to her. Either way it go, it's sad that this happened the way that it happened. It's very sad that this happened the way that it happened. Because them kids lost their grandmother. Her daughters lost the mother. Her mother lost a daughter. Her siblings lost a sister. And the church lost a reverend. So y'all tell me what y'all think. I'm going to keep following this case because I know I'm on to something. I'm going to keep following it. Okay. And I may do a part 2 because I know this case is still fresh. So there's still going to be some evidence that pops up that'll make it more clear on whether this was intentional or whether it was just like the family speculated. They don't think it was for her. Somebody got the houses mixed up. But like I told you, God ain't got nothing mixed up. The universe don't mix up shit. Everything that happens for a reason. Everything. Nothing happens without reason because the universe is not created that way. Nothing happens without reason. So with that being said, may Leslie Yvette Davis rest in peace. Okay, my condolences to her family. Okay, if this reading may reach any of them and y'all would like to hire me for further investigations, please reach out to me in my email. I do not pursue anybody. We don't do that. Okay, I let people discover me. That is how we work. That is how I work. Okay, I don't get in God's way. I don't get in the craft's way. This is a spiritual art and craft. I don't get in the way of that. So if it's meant for this video to reach them, it will reach them without my force. I just put it out there. Okay, and it's an oracle. It'll reach who it needs to reach. Okay, so until then, y'all be blessed.